alcohol used to be this social thing I used to connect with people and go out, had now become something I did nightly alone by myself.
I woke up with the worst hangover, and for the first time ever, I had this voice in my head that said, this is not okay.
Those situations created such a deep level of shame inside of me that I wasn't able to shake alcohol in the wake of those experiences.
And I just held on to that belief that real Lucy came out when she was drinking.
Up until I gave it up, alcohol played a major role in my life. I started drinking young.
People who drink every day have smaller brains.
I was drinking, just trying to take the pain away.
I actually didn't know who I was until very recently.
Alcohol is not a health food.
I kind of thought to myself that if I can give up alcohol for a whole year, that proves I'm in control. I'll be able to go back to it and this won't happen again. But obviously, that's not the case.
Sobriety first. I got and stayed sober by overcoming denial, finding people to talk to, being honest, holding myself accountable, working a program and helping others and working with a sponsor and doing an inventory and making amends. And it's really only when I created a solid foundation of sobriety that I began to expand in other areas like being vegan and becoming this middle-aged endurance athlete.
The coping mechanisms I discovered worked for me were incredibly self-destructive and self-sabotaging.
I really do feel like there's been a weight lifted off my shoulders that I didn't even know was there. I genuinely thought I enjoyed alcohol, but I hated the fact that a few times a year I'd get way more drunk than I intended to.
I've been working on getting sober since I was 20. I'm 33. It takes time. It took time, and it took patience with myself.
And not drinking has made me realize this is still there. Things as simple as self-love. Why do I feel like I have conditional love for myself, where I'm only good for what I do and the metrics and the numbers and what I accomplish? But can I take away all of that and just love me for a person and my character and what I do for others?
When my drinking got more and more dire, my parents had reached the level of their tolerance threshold with me. And basically, my dad said, listen, we love you, but we just can't continue to watch you destroy yourself like this. And we can't have anything to do with you.
Fitness really saved my life when I was in the depths of despair, when I was incarcerated on felony drug charges. And up until that point, I was the most unhealthy person you could think of. I was managing some trauma with some super unhealthy ways, such as drugs, alcohol, all that stuff. My life was really spinning out of control. And so what really helped me was when my cellmate looked me in the face and he said, Doug, you can either be a man or you can be a bitch. Because I was complaining to him when I was in jail. I was like, dude, I have so many problems. My parents are this, my friends are this. I was bullied, I was picked on, I was all kinds of made fun of. And he's like, well, Doug, bitch, you made the choices in those situations that got yourself incarcerated. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, you're here, aren't you? And I really believe, Tom, that we're not defined by our circumstances. We're defined by the choices we make in response to our circumstances. And he said, when I was in jail, he's like, you can be a man and look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, take responsibility for yourself. You got yourself here. You're here right now. And you can, man up and do what you need to do to get better. Or you can be a bitch, go cry in the corner, blame everybody for your problems, say, woe is me. And where I came from, where I grew up, being called a bitch isn't cool. And I was like, you know what? I'll take the opportunity of being a man. It's tough. And I think, especially when we don't have that belief in ourselves, when somebody says, I believe in you and you can do it, and I'm going to help show you the way to get you started. I was like, I'd never had anybody do that to me before, that unconditional love. I just felt like this void being filled from, whether it was the friends I had that were just using me for drugs, or whether it was my relationship with my parents. And that to me was just what really kickstarted that belief in me and inspired me to take a chance. It's your responsibility to change. No one's going to do it for you. You have to look at yourself in the mirror.
So with my mum, she was an alcoholic. I then got into recovery, and then came the thing of, how long do I go along with my mum being an alcoholic without saying you're an alcoholic? And you need to do something about it because it's getting really bad. And after a few years of being in recovery, talking to my sponsor, going to meetings, sharing about it, I thought, I'm going to confront her about it. And I said, you're an alcoholic, you need to do something about it. And then she got really fucking angry with me, and she didn't do anything about it. Eventually I just said, look, I can't see you until you get sober. And she got sober. And I invited her to my wedding.
I've been happy at different points in my life, but I hadn't ever experienced joy. And to me, the difference in happiness and being joyous joyous is long term and sustainable, and it doesn't come from anything external. It comes from here. Basically, what alcohol did for me, it was like this feeling of, oh my God, this is what I've been searching for my whole life. I'm my truest self, right? Like, I'm so much funnier and cooler and people like me. That's all bullshit. Guess what? Not true. I was not myself, not my truest self. But it started with, wow, I can be free and funny and boys will like me. This is when I'm younger, right? And I just like held on to that belief that real Lucy came out when she was drinking. Guess what? Real Lucy did come out, but it was that rage and pain that I had been holding on to for so long. But it also quieted my mind. And I'm not the only person on the planet that deals with this, but like my brain just doesn't shut off. It's exhausting. But when I drink, because I was like textbook binge drinker, like blackout, wouldn't remember what I did, what I said, which is scary. And it's also hard to explain that type of drinking to someone, because people who haven't experienced it or dealt with it personally, like addiction is such a topic that is still so taboo, because people would just tell me, well, Lucy, don't drink. Oh, thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I'll try that. Thanks. I get emotional when I speak about these things because I just love where I've landed in my life. And it's been a really, Jesus, I didn't know I'd get like emotional this early on. It's just been a really powerful and painful, insightful, joyous, horrible journey. And I love that I can sit across from you now and be my most authentic self. I've always kind of felt like an open wound, if that makes sense. Like even as a kid, I just felt like I felt things in a really deep way. You could call that maybe codependency or taking on problems that weren't mine. But now I get emotional because of the perspective and just having pride in the choices I've made. And it's not emotional tears in a sad way. It's more just joy. I tried to change for boyfriends. I tried to change for my mom. I tried to change for my career. I tried to change for vain reasons. I'm like, well, I'll look younger and be skinnier. I'll stop drinking for that. None of that shit works. I had to and wanted to get sober January 2nd, 2022, because I said, I deserve more. I deserve more out of this life. I have to try it a different way. And I have to be willing to just commit to it.